Today, we leave the present behind and walk together through memories that are no longer ours. Across time and space, we will breathe the fresh air of feudal Japan, feel the weight of armor upon our shoulders, and contemplate life through the eyes of one who lived by the sword and the code of honor. If you feel this journey touches your night, consider joining us more often, and tell us where you're listening from. Now, silence the world around you, dim the light, and take a deep breath. We're about to dream of the past. Darkness still embraces the world when my eyes open. It is this suspended moment between night and day that I cherish most, when spirits roam more freely and thoughts flow like dew on bamboo leaves. I breathe deeply, feeling the cold air enter my lungs. There is no need for counting to awaken. My body knows the rhythm of the universe as it knows the balance of my sword. I rise from the futon in silence, careful not to disturb the peace of the house. The tatami mats creak softly beneath my bare feet, a sound as familiar as my own breathing. The ancient wood of the structure tells stories of harsh winters and oppressive summers that came before me. How many warriors have slept on these same boards, dreaming of battles and honor? I move through the dark space with the precision of one who could find his way even without eyes. In the small alcove, I light a single candle before the small altar where the names of my ancestors rest. I bow in respect. Their spirits watch me, judging every movement, every decision. I cannot disappoint them. The morning ritual follows its unchanging course. I wash my face with cold water from the well, feeling each drop awaken my skin. Water in Japan is considered purifying not just for the body, but also for the soul, a tradition dating back to immemorial times, when the first Shinto priests performed ablutions in sacred mountain waterfalls. I allow a few drops to trickle down my neck, following paths like rivers on a map that only time knows. My armor waits, meticulously arranged on the wooden stand, a gift from my father when I first took the warrior's path. Each piece tells its own story, each scratch and dent a memory of battles survived. The lacquered plates shine softly in the dim light, black and crimson like the sky before dawn. I do not don it yet. First comes the meditation, then the sword practice, and only then the weight of a samurai's duty. Outside, cherry blossoms fall like pink snow in the garden. They say the fleeting beauty of the sakura represents the transient nature of a warrior's life, brief, beautiful, and destined to fall at the height of its glory. Perhaps that is why we samurai feel such kinship with these delicate flowers. I catch one in my palm, studying its perfect form before the breeze claims it again. The first rays of sunlight pierce the eastern horizon as I unsheathe my katana. The blade catches the light, reflecting it back to the heavens like a silent prayer. This sword has been in my family for 3 generations, forged by the master swordsmith Masamune himself, whose blades were said to be so pure they would not cut an innocent leaf drifting onto them in a stream. Whether this is true, I cannot say, but I feel its spirit resonating with mine as I begin the first kata of the morning. My movements are slow, deliberate, each position flowing into the next like water. The sword becomes an extension of my arm, my will made manifest in gleaming steel. This is not combat. It is conversation. With myself, with my ancestors, with the universe. In these moments, I find clarity. The concerns of court politics, the whispers of potential war with neighboring clans, even the burden of my family's expectations, all fade away until there is only the sword, the breath, and the dawn. A bird calls from a nearby tree, marking the true beginning of day. Soon the household will stir. Servants will prepare the morning meal. Messengers may arrive with news from the daimyo's castle, and the rhythm of daily life will assert itself. But for now, in this precious interlude between dreams and duty, I am simply a man testing his edge against the first light of morning. Like my sword, seeking to prove worthy of the day to come. The mountains rise before me like ancient gods, their peaks disappearing into the morning mist. I have climbed these paths since boyhood, yet they never yield all their secrets at once. Today I ascend alone, each step a meditation, each breath a prayer. The weight of my armor is familiar, 14 layers of lacquered plates bound with silk cord, yet it is the invisible burden of honor that truly tests my strength. Dawn has fully broken now, bathing the landscape in gold. The valley below sleeps under a blanket of fog, the village roofs like islands in a milky sea. From this height, the concerns of men seem small, yet paradoxically, it is here that I feel most connected to the code that binds us all. Bushido, the way of the warrior, is not merely a set of rules to follow, but the very marrow in my bones. The mountain trail narrows as I climb higher. Pine needles cushion my steps, releasing their sharp, clean scent. A red-crowned crane takes flight at my approach, wings spread against the vast blue canvas of sky. I pause to watch its graceful ascent. The ancients believed such birds carried the souls of fallen warriors to the afterlife. Perhaps somewhere above, my grandfather watches my progress with his stern, knowing eyes. I find my customary meditation spot, a flat stone overlooking a sheer drop, where wind currents rise from the valley floor. Here the boundary between earth and heaven seems permeable. I remove my helmet, feeling the cool air against my shaved pate where only the top knot remains, a style called shanmage that marks me as samurai as surely as my paired swords. Few outsiders know that this hairstyle began as a practical matter, to keep the helmet comfortable during long campaigns, before becoming a symbol of status and commitment to our way. Sitting in seiza position, I lay my katana before me. Its presence both comforts and challenges. 7 virtues form the spine of Bushido: rectitude, courage, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. Like the 7 layers of steel folded hundreds of times in my blade, these principles have been hammered into me since childhood, heated in the forge of discipline, cooled in the waters of tradition. Yesterday, in the daimyo's court, I witnessed a fellow samurai publicly reprimanded for a minor breach of etiquette. He bore it stoically, face impassive, though I could see the shame burning in his eyes. Later, he confided his fear that the incident might stain his family's reputation. I understood his concern all too well. For a samurai, death is preferable to dishonor, not merely personal dishonor, but any action that might reflect poorly on one's lord or lineage. The wind shifts, bringing the distant scent of wood smoke from the village. Soon I must return to my duties. But these moments of solitude sustain me through the complexities of court life. A samurai exists in the space between extremes, between peace and violence, between rigid formality and spontaneous action, between unquestioning loyalty and moral judgment. This balance is as precarious as standing on the edge of this cliff, yet as necessary as breathing. I recall the words my father spoke when he first brought me to this spot, placing a small stone in my palm. A samurai is like this stone, formed by tremendous pressure, weathered by time, yet maintaining its essential nature. The mountain did not create the stone, it revealed what was already there. The stone now rests in my obi, a talisman carried through battles and peaceful years alike. Historical texts tell us that during the Kamakura period, warriors would retreat to mountain temples to study Zen philosophy, finding in its paradoxes and disciplines a path to clarity in combat. The famous General Minamoto no Yoshitsune spent his formative years in such a temple, learning from the Tengu, mythical mountain spirits known for their martial prowess. While I cannot claim to have encountered such supernatural teachers, I have found wisdom in these heights that eludes me in the flatlands. A falcon circles overhead, its keen eyes surveying the landscape. How simple the bird's existence seems. Hunt, eat, survive. Yet even falcons have their code, their instinctive honor. They do not kill wantonly, they take only what they need. Perhaps there is a lesson there that some human warriors forget. The sun climbs higher, and I must soon descend. Before I rise, I recite the warrior's meditation that has steadied generations of samurai before battle. I have no parents. I make the heavens and earth my parents. I have no home. I make awareness my home. I have no life or death. I make the tides of breathing my life and death. I have no divine power. I make honesty my divine power. I have no means. I make understanding my means. I have no magic secrets. I make character my magic secret. I have no body. I make endurance my body. I have no eyes. I make the flash of lightning my eyes. I have no ears. I make sensibility my ears. I have no limbs. I make promptness my limbs. I have no strategy. I make unshadowed by thought my strategy. I have no designs. I make seizing opportunity by the forelock my design. I have no miracles. I make right action my miracle. I have no principles. I make adaptability to all circumstances my principles. I have no tactics. I make emptiness and fullness my tactics. I have no friends. I make my mind my friend. I have no enemy. I make carelessness my enemy. I have no armor. I make benevolence and righteousness my armor. I have no castle. I make immovable mind my castle. I have no sword. I make absence of self my sword. The words settle into my bones, bringing clarity. I gather my helmet and stand, feeling the weight of both armor and honor distributed evenly across my frame. The path downward awaits, winding through pine and mist back to the world of men and duty. Perhaps the greatest wisdom these mountains have taught me is that a warrior carries his code within, and no matter how far he travels, that inner landscape remains his true province. Steam rises from the clay teapot like morning fog over a battlefield. I sit in seiza position, my legs folded beneath me, back straight as a katana blade. Across from me, Lord Takeda contemplates the arrangement of small stones on the tactical map, each representing a unit of warriors, horses, or archers. Between us, the ritual of tea creates a sacred space where strategy can unfold with clarity. The mind must be still to see the patterns of conflict, my lord muses, accepting the earthenware cup I offer with both hands. This is no ordinary tea gathering, but rather chanoyu performed before battle planning, a tradition dating back generations among the warrior class. While many see the tea ceremony as merely aesthetic ritual, for samurai, it serves a deeper purpose, centering the mind before decisions that will determine the fate of hundreds. The small tea room is sparse by design. A single scroll hangs in the tokonoma alcove, bearing the character for transience. A seasonal arrangement of wild, iris and river reed stands beneath it. The flowers will wilt by tomorrow, a reminder of life's brevity that no warrior can afford to forget. The ceiling is low, requiring all who enter to bow, regardless of rank, another lesson in humility before the gods of war. I whisk the matcha into a frothy green pool, movements precise and economical. The bright bitter taste that follows is clarifying, almost painful in its intensity. Tea was first brought to Japan by Zen monks returning from China, who recognized its value in maintaining alertness during long meditations. For warriors preparing for battle, this alertness is even more precious, a moment of perfect awareness before chaos erupts. The Oda forces will expect us to approach through the valley, Lord Takeda says, breaking the contemplative silence. It is the obvious path, and therefore the path we must avoid, I reply, placing my cup down with deliberate care. The sound of ceramic against wood punctuates my statement. Few outside our class understand the curious intimacy of these pre-battle discussions. In this room, rank loosens its grip slightly. A trusted samurai may speak his mind without fear, offering counsel that might save countless lives. It is a privilege earned through years of loyalty and demonstrated wisdom, one I do not take lightly. The tea warms my center as I study the map. What appears as simple stones and lines represents villages that will burn, fields that will be trampled, lives that will end. A peculiar responsibility rests in this moment, the quiet before action, when possibility still breathes in every option considered. There is a narrow path through the eastern forest, I suggest, indicating the route with my fan. Local hunters use it to track deer. It would allow a small force to flank their position while the main army draws attention. To the valley approach, Lord Takeda's eyes narrow in consideration. The forest path is treacherous. The men would need to travel in single file. Yes, my lord. But the Oda scouts will not expect it. They believe the forest impassable for armored men. A half-smile crosses his weathered face. Because most armored men lack your experience in mountain terrain. I bow slightly, acknowledging both the compliment and the burden it carries. I will lead this flanking force myself, if he commands it. The thought settles in my stomach, heavy as a stone. The room falls silent again as we sip our tea. Through the small window, I watch a dragonfly hover above the garden pond, its wings catching the morning light. Its movements are precise, efficient, darting forward, retreating, holding position. Nature offers its lessons freely to those who observe. In this stillness before conflict, I find myself reflected most truly, not in polished metal or still water, but in the choices laid before me. Will I counsel caution or boldness? Will I volunteer for the most dangerous position, or protect my men by keeping them in the main force? Each decision reveals character more honestly than any mirror. There is a forgotten piece of samurai wisdom regarding tea before battle. The warrior, who cannot be fully present for the bitter taste of matcha, cannot be fully present for the clash of steel that follows. The ceremony forces patience in creatures bred for action, stillness in hearts trained for violence. This contradiction is the essence of Bushido, the controlled tension between opposing forces. You seem troubled, old friend, Lord Takeda observes, his voice softening slightly. I was thinking of the village near the forest path, I admit. They are simple farmers. If our passage is discovered while we are among their homes. He nods gravely. The Oda would make examples of them. This is the weight that rests unspoken in our tea rooms and war councils. The knowledge that our decisions ripple outward, touching lives beyond the battlefield. A samurai serves his lord absolutely, yet the best of us carry the welfare of the common people in our thoughts as well. This balance is rarely discussed but always present, like the air we breathe. Perhaps, I suggest after careful consideration, we might send word for them to travel to the autumn market in the neighboring province. A day's warning would empty the village without raising suspicion. Lord Takeda considers this, tracing the rim of his teacup with one calloused finger. A compassionate thought. See that it is done discreetly. The relief I feel is private, contained behind the impassive face expected of my station. Yet I suspect he sees it nonetheless. A good commander knows the hearts of his men as thoroughly as he knows the terrain of battle. As our tea ceremony concludes, I perform the ritual cleaning of the utensils. Each object is wiped with a cloth of raw silk, movements deliberate and focused. In this simple act lies another truth of the warrior's path. We must clean our spirits as thoroughly as we clean our tools, leaving no residue of hesitation or doubt before combat. The last of the tea leaves swirl in the bottom of my cup, forming patterns as unknowable as the outcome of tomorrow's engagement. Yet in this moment of quiet contemplation, I have found my center, the still point around which the chaos of battle will revolve. Whatever comes with the dawn, I will face it with clarity born in this room. over shared tea and silent understanding. The village bells toll the hour, their bronze voices carrying across rice paddies golden with the promise of harvest. I pause on the road, letting my small retinue continue ahead while I absorb the familiar sounds. These are not the elaborate temple bells of Kyoto or the war drums of the battlefield, but the simpler rhythms that marked my earliest days. Before I was samurai, before I held steel and commanded men, I was a child of such a village, a fact few who serve beside me now would believe or understand. I dismount, handing the reins to my attendant with instructions to wait at the village edge. Some paths must be walked alone. The dirt road beneath my feet feels different from the stone-paved courtyards of the castle, yielding slightly with each step as if remembering my passage. Nearby, farmers bend in the paddies, their conical straw hats shielding them from the late summer sun. Their movements follow the ancient choreography of cultivation that has sustained our island since time immemorial. "A good harvest this year," I remarked to an elder resting beneath a gnarled pine. He squints up at me, taking in my appearance. The fine silk beneath my traveling armor, the paired swords at my waist. These marks me as samurai, as surely as his. Calloused hands and weathered face mark him as a tiller of soil. Yet there is no fear in his eyes, only the measured assessment of one who has seen seasons turn enough times to know that rank, like weather, is temporary in the grand scheme of things. "Better than last," he replies simply. Though the tax collectors will take their share, as always. There is no accusation in his tone, merely statement of fact. Yet I feel the weight of his words. Now I serve the system that once pressed upon my own family's back. The irony is not lost on me. The village headman approaches, bowing deeply upon recognizing my clanmon emblazoned on my surcoat. I gesture for him to rise. Excessive formality feels strange here among the mud and growing things. Few know that during the Kamakura period, it was not uncommon for talented sons of farmers to be adopted into samurai households when extra swords were needed. I was such a child, noticed for my quick hands and quicker mind while helping my father deliver rice to the local lord's storehouse. Lord Takita's swordmaster saw me practicing with a wooden stick in the courtyard, mimicking the movements I had glimpsed during training sessions. Within a fortnight, I'd been formally adopted, my name changed, my destiny rewritten. The village headman invites me to refresh myself at his home. I accept, following him through narrow pathways between modest dwellings. Children peek out from behind sliding doors, their curious eyes following the unusual sight of a fully armored warrior walking their humble streets. One brave boy approaches, asking if he might touch my sword guard. The headman begins to scold him, but I kneel instead, bringing myself to the child's level. The tsuba is designed not just for protection, I explain, allowing him to examine the intricate ironwork depicting herons among reeds, but to balance the blade. Even the decorative serves a practical purpose. The boy's eyes widen with wonder, and for a moment, I see myself at his age, filled with dreams of a world beyond rice fields and fishing nets. Did someone see the same spark in me all those years ago? Perhaps our paths are less chosen than recognized by others who walked them before us. At the headman's house, I remove my armor, accepting the simple hospitality offered. Cool barley, tea, and freshly harvested persimmons. The fruit's sweet flesh dissolves on my tongue, carrying memories of autumn evenings when such simple pleasures were the height of luxury. Now I dine on delicacies in the daimyo's castle, yet nothing tastes quite as essential as food pulled directly from the earth. Your village appears prosperous, I observe, noticing the well-maintained irrigation channels and the absence of the desperate thinness that marks communities in decline. We have been fortunate, the headman acknowledges, though we lost 3 young men to the coastal raids last spring. I nod gravely. The raids he speaks of were repelled by warriors of my lord's army, perhaps even by soldiers under my direct command. The distance between my current life and this one seems at once vast and non-existent. The same moon shines on castle and village alike, The same conflicts touch both worlds, though they experience them differently. A peculiar custom in rural villages like this one is the keeping of memory bowls, simple ceramic vessels into which important events are inscribed on paper and sealed with wax. During the New Year's festival, these are ceremonially opened and read aloud before being burned, ensuring that even in communities where few can read, history is preserved and shared. I notice such a bowl on the headman's modest altar, wondering what memories it contains. Births, deaths, invasions, moments of peace. My hands rest on the low table between us, hands that now wield steel with deadly precision, that write poetry in the formal style, that make the refined gestures of court. Yet beneath the surface, these same hands remember other work. The pulling of weeds, the repair of fishing nets, the gathering of fallen chestnuts in autumn. The calluses have changed position but not purpose. To serve, to create, to protect. Does your family still farm near Hagi? The headman asks, surprising me with his knowledge of my origins. They do not, I reply after a moment. My parents passed during the Great Sickness. My younger brother maintains a fishery now, under our cousin's name. I do not add that this arrangement was my doing, a small use of influence to ensure my birth family would never again know hunger. As the afternoon lengthens, I must return to my duties. Donning my armor once more, I feel its weight differently than I did this morning. Perhaps a samurai is not so far removed from the farmer after all. Both live by codes unspoken but understood. Both serve powers greater than themselves. Both know that survival requires equal measures of discipline and adaptability. Walking back through the village, I pass a young woman teaching her daughter to weave a simple basket. Their fingers work in practiced unison, creating something useful from seemingly useless reeds. Perhaps this is the essence of all meaningful paths, the transformation of what is given into something that serves. The warrior transforms chaos into order. The farmer transforms seed into sustenance. Perhaps I have never truly left the village at all. The moon hangs full and heavy in the night sky, casting its silver light across the surface of the Kiso River. I stand on the bank, watching the current flow endlessly eastward. My small contingent of warriors waits silently behind me, their armor muted in the darkness. We must cross before dawn if we are to reach Lord Takeda's northern encampment by tomorrow's sunset. The message I carry cannot be entrusted to ordinary couriers. Some words must be delivered by those prepared to die protecting them. The river runs high tonight, observes Hiroshi, my most trusted retainer. His voice is low, barely audible above the rush of water. The mountain snows are melting early this year, I reply, studying the swirling patterns where moonlight catches on ripples and eddies. But we have crossed in worse conditions. Water has always been sacred in our land. Boundary between worlds, purifier of spirit, mirror of truth. I remove my helmet, feeling the cool night air against my skin, and kneel at the river's edge. As I cup my hands and bring the icy water to my lips, I perform the silent ritual my grandfather taught me. One sip for strength, one for clarity, one for the ancestors who watch from beyond the veil. In feudal times like ours, a samurai's ability to ford rivers quickly can determine the outcome of entire campaigns. The famous general Takeda Shingen once surprised his enemies by crossing the impassable Fuji River during the spring floods. Approaching from a direction thought impossible, his men used inflated animal skins and bamboo frames to float their armor across while swimming with their swords tied to their backs. Tonight, we employ a simpler method. A series of ropes stretched across the narrowest point, invisible in the darkness unless one knows precisely where to look. I wade into the shallows, feeling the current push against my legs. The chill penetrates. Instantly, a sharp reminder of mortality. Behind me, my men follow in perfect silence, a discipline honed through years of night maneuvers. The weight of my armor makes each step deliberate, a negotiation between force and balance. Few outsiders understand that a samurai's armor is designed not for maximum protection, but for optimal movement. Lacquered plates bound with silk cords that allow us to swim, climb, and ride while protected. Halfway across, where the river runs, deepest, I pause momentarily. Looking down, the moon's reflection shivers on the dark water, fragmenting into countless points of light. For a fleeting moment, I see not my own face, but my father's, stern, expectant, guiding. Then my grandfather's countenance appears, then his father's, and further back, ancestors I know only from painted scrolls and family stories. The samurai tradition of keeping detailed genealogical records ensures we never forget those whose blood flows in our veins, whose decisions shape our present circumstances. They say the dead cross rivers to reach the afterlife, whispers Takashi, the youngest of my warriors, his eyes wide as he steadies himself on the guide rope. Then we are in good company tonight, I reply, allowing a rare smile to cross my face. There exists an ancient belief, rarely spoken of outside rural villages, that when crossing moving water under a full moon, one can pose a question to the ancestors and receive guidance in the pattern of ripples that follow. My grandmother, a woman of remarkable insight who married into the samurai class from humble origins, taught me this secret when I was barely tall enough to hold a training sword. Tonight, as the current swirls around my waist, I silently ask, will my lord's peace negotiations succeed, or are we marching toward inevitable war? The water offers no clear answer, only continuous movement, perhaps wisdom in itself. The future, like this river, cannot be held static for examination. We can only move with its flow, navigating by skill and intuition. A peculiar irony of the samurai's existence is that we spend our lives preparing for death, yet when faced with its possibility, as in this midnight river crossing where one misstep could mean drowning under the weight of our own armor, we fight to survive with every fiber of our being. Perhaps this contradiction is what gives meaning to our path. We embrace the certainty of death so that we might live more completely in each moment. The far bank comes into view, a darker shadow against the night. One by one, my men emerge from the water, shaking themselves like bears before reassuming their stoic demeanor. No word of complaint passes their lips despite the bone-deep cold. This shared discomfort forms bonds stronger than formal oaths, the unspoken brotherhood of those who suffer together in service to a greater purpose. I am the last to leave the river, turning back once to bow slightly toward the flowing water. In our tradition, rivers are not merely physical features but kami, spirits deserving of respect. The great strategist Yamamoto Tsunetomo wrote in his Hagakure that a warrior should always acknowledge the spirits of place, for they may lend their strength to those who honor them or create obstacles for those who do not. As we continue our journey under star-scattered skies, I feel a curious lightness despite the weight of my dripping armor. Perhaps it is simply relief at having overcome the crossing, or perhaps something more profound. The sense of connection to all who have traversed similar paths before me. The wet footprints we leave on the northern bank will vanish by morning, just as our individual lives will eventually fade from memory. Yet the impression we make, the causes we serve, the honor we uphold or disgrace we bring, continues like ripples in water, touching shores we will never see. The message I carry, proposals for alliance against a common threat, may alter the course of provinces and clans, or it may be merely another current in the endless flow of political maneuvering. How strange that momentous history and personal destiny meet in such ordinary moments. A night river crossing, a conversation between lords, a decision made at dawn. My ancestors' faces in the water offered no answers, only presence. Perhaps that is guidance enough, to know that we are never truly alone in our crossing, that others have navigated these same treacherous currents before us, and that our struggles today will become the silent support for those who follow tomorrow. Lantern light casts long shadows across the cedar floors of Azuchi Castle. each flame a small sun creating its own realm of illumination and darkness. I walk the outer corridor, my footsteps deliberately silent despite the nightingale floors, designed to chirp and warn of intruders. After years of service, I know precisely where to place my weight to move like a ghost through these hallways, a skill few would expect from a warrior, but essential for one who serves as both sword and eyes for his lord. Tonight the castle breathes tension. Visiting emissaries from 3 rival clans have been received with elaborate ceremony, their retinues housed in separate wings, their intentions as carefully concealed as the daggers surely hidden beneath their formal robes. I have been assigned to shadow the most dangerous among them, Lord Imagawa's chief strategist, a man whose soft voice and gentle smile have preceded the fall of 3 prominent families. The castle's inner chambers form a labyrinth of power and secrets. Unlike the battlefield, where strength of arm and clarity of purpose determine outcomes, here, victory belongs to those who master the art of concealment. Words carry double meanings. Gestures become coded messages. Silence itself becomes a weapon, wielded with precision. The architecture reflects this reality. False walls conceal hidden passages. Certain rooms are designed to amplify whispers to listening ears behind wooden panels. And even the garden stones are arranged to funnel visitors along paths where they can be easily observed. Shadows hide both assassins and protectors, my mentor once told me. Learn to be the latter. I pause near the garden entrance, watching moonlight illuminate the carefully raked white gravel. Castle gardens serve not merely as aesthetic pleasures, but as defensive measures, open spaces that force visitors to cross exposed ground, bridges positioned to slow approaching forces, strategic placement of water features to limit access points, beauty and death, intertwined as in all aspects of the samurai's existence. From my position, I can observe 3 critical areas: the guest quarters housing the Imagawa strategist, the approach to my lord's private chambers, and the hidden alcove, where 2 guards stand ready to respond to my signal if needed. My lord sleeps soundly tonight only because others remain vigilant. This is the essence of feudal loyalty, the surrender of personal comfort for the protection of one's master. A shadow moves where no shadow should be. I tense, hand instinctively finding the hilt of my wakizashi, the shorter companion sword, to my katana, better suited for the confined spaces of indoor combat. The figure emerges into a patch of moonlight, revealing one of the castle maids carrying a lacquered tray. She bows upon seeing me, eyes downcast as protocol demands. "You are abroad late," I observe, my tone neutral, though my suspicion remains active. "Lord Imagawa requested warm sake, my lord," she replies, voice barely above a whisper. I study her face, searching for signs of deception. Even servants can be compromised in the silent wars of influence that rage behind castle walls. During the Warring States period, numerous daimyo fell not to armies, but to poison administered by corrupted household staff. My own lord's grandfather survived 3 such attempts, after which he instituted the practice of requiring food tasters for all meals, a tradition we maintain to this day. I will deliver it myself, I decide, taking the tray from her hands. Something flickers across her features. Relief? Disappointment? She bows again and retreats, the soft rustle of her kimono fading into silence. The sake flask is warm against my palms as I consider my next move. This small interruption could be innocent, or the prelude to betrayal. In the castle's shadowed heart, discerning between the two is the difference between life and death. I make my way to the guest chambers, moving through pools of darkness between lantern light. The castle at night transforms into another world. Familiar. Corridors become strange. Ordinary sounds take on new significance. The massive wooden beams above creak as the structure settles, whispering secrets in a language only the ancient timbers understand. One of the most closely guarded curiosities of castle architecture is the purpose of certain asymmetrical designs. Rooms with odd angles, corridors that bend without apparent reason. While visitors might attribute these to aesthetic preference or structural necessity, many were intentionally created to disorient potential assassins and provide defensive advantages to those familiar with the layout. I have memorized every such feature in Azuchi Castle, including the slightly raised threshold before Lord Imagawa's chambers, designed to cause a moment's stumble, enough time for a defender to react. I announce myself formally before entering. Lord Imagawa sits in seiza position before a small writing desk, brush poised above paper. He smiles as I place the sake tray beside him, but the expression doesn't reach his eyes, cold and calculating as a winter pond. "How thoughtful of your lord to send his most trusted samurai to deliver my refreshment," he remarks, his emphasis on most trusted carrying subtle weight. "It is my honor to ensure our guests receive proper attention," I reply, matching his tone of polite insincerity. As he pours the sake, I notice the document on his desk, a map of border territories currently disputed between our clans. His sleeve deliberately covers a portion of it, but not before I glimpse markings that suggest troop placements. Information worth more than gold in our precarious political landscape. "I find I cannot sleep in unfamiliar surroundings," he continues. "Perhaps you share this affliction when traveling?" "A samurai learns to rest with one eye open, regardless of location," I answer. Our conversation continues in this vein, seemingly innocent observations laden with veiled meanings. He is probing for information. I am revealing nothing while appearing to be cordial. This dance of words is as formalized as our sword kata, with potentially deadlier consequences. Later, as I resume my position in the corridor, I reflect on the nature of loyalty in these shadowed times. It manifests not only in willingness to die for one's lord, but in these smaller vigilances: the delivered sake, the memorized castle layout, the words carefully chosen and withheld. Perhaps true loyalty shines brightest not on the battlefield where glory beckons, but in these dark corridors where no one witnesses our choices except our own conscience. I sometimes wonder, a thought I share with no one, if our elaborate castle defenses protect us from external threats, or merely contain the dangers we create ourselves with our ambitions and suspicions. The moats and walls keep enemies at bay, but what protects us from the shadows we cast within our own hearts? Dawn approaches, turning the eastern sky the color of unsheathed steel. Soon the castle will awaken to another day of formal negotiations and concealed intentions. I will report what I have seen and heard. My lord will adjust his strategy accordingly, and the game will continue. Until then, I remain a loyal shadow among shadows, guarding secrets with secrets of my own. The bamboo forest breathes around me, countless green stalks swaying in perfect unison with the morning breeze. I have walked since first light to reach this sacred place, leaving behind the politics of the castle and the responsibilities of command. Here, 10 arai from the nearest village, exists a world between worlds, where the boundary between physical and spiritual thins like morning mist under rising sun. I have come, as I do before any significant battle, to find the space within myself where fear cannot follow. I settle beneath a towering grove, where the bamboo grows so densely that midday light filters through in dappled patterns, creating a natural temple of green and gold. The ground beneath me is carpeted with fallen leaves that whisper with each subtle movement. I remove my swords, placing them reverently before me, not as weapons, but as extensions of my spirit. The katana and wakizashi form a tangible boundary between my physical presence and the void I seek in meditation. Sitting in seiza position, I regulate my breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth, each breath slower and deeper than the last. The practice of zazen came to our shores with Zen Buddhism during the Kamakura period. brought by monks who recognized that warriors required spiritual discipline as rigorous as their martial training. What began as foreign philosophy has become the backbone of samurai consciousness, the still center from which all action flows. The mind must be like still water, my Zen teacher often said, reflecting reality precisely, without distortion. Only then can you see the truth of any situation. Between each heartbeat, I find the space where consciousness expands. The sounds of the forest intensify. Bamboo stalks knocking gently against each other like wooden chimes. Birds calling from unseen perches. Insects humming their eternal songs. Each breath draws these sensations deeper, until the boundary between observer and observed begins to dissolve. This is Mushin, the state of no mind that swordmasters speak of, where action occurs without the interference of thought or emotion. Few outside the warrior class understand that meditation is not merely philosophical practice, but practical necessity. In battle, the difference between life and death often comes down to a single moment of hesitation or clarity. By training the mind to remain empty and receptive, a samurai develops the ability to respond to threats without the delay that conscious deliberation creates. My teacher demonstrated this once by having me sit in meditation while he approached silently from behind with a wooden staff. Only when I could sense and evade the strike without seeing it did he pronounce my training adequate. A peculiar phenomenon occurs in bamboo forests that makes them ideal for deep meditation. A natural resonance created by the hollow stalks that amplifies certain sounds while absorbing others. Mountain ascetics discovered centuries ago that chanting within a mature bamboo grove produces vibrations that seem to penetrate the physical body, inducing altered states of consciousness. Some believe these vibrations can drive away malevolent spirits. Others claim they align the body's energy centers. I know only that the subtle symphony of bamboo creates a space where the mind more easily finds its natural state of tranquility. As my meditation deepens, I become aware of tensions carried in my body. The tightness across my shoulders from hours of armor wearing, the subtle strain in my sword hand that never fully relaxes, the pressure behind my eyes from constant vigilance. One by one, I acknowledge these sensations without judgment, allowing each to dissolve like morning fog. The process reminds me of the tea master's lesson. Empty your cup completely before seeking to fill it anew. Within this emptiness, memories arise, not as distractions, but as clouds passing across an expansive sky. I see the face of the young soldier who died under my command 3 seasons ago, his eyes wide with the shock of his first and final battle. I see the burning village we could not save, flames reflecting in the tears of survivors. I see my lord's expression when I returned, bearing both victory and the cost of that victory. These images appear not to torment, but to be witnessed fully, accepted as part of the path I walk. Between each heartbeat, I find the space where fear dwells. Not the immediate fear of battle, that is a clean thing, sharp and useful as a well-honed blade. Rather, I confront the deeper fears that no warrior speaks of aloud. Fear of failing those who depend on me. Fear of surviving when others perish. Fear of losing myself in the violence we call duty. Each breath acknowledges these fears. Each exhalation releases their power over my actions. The bamboo whispers secrets if one listens closely enough. Unlike the cherry blossoms that command attention with spectacular beauty before falling, bamboo endures, bending without breaking, hollow yet strong, simple yet sufficient. Perhaps there is wisdom in emulating its nature. The famous swordmaster Miyamoto Musashi wrote that a warrior should be like bamboo, firmly rooted but flexible enough to sway with the strongest wind. A shaft of sunlight penetrates the canopy, illuminating particles of dust dancing in the air. Countless individual motes moving in patterns too complex to predict, yet forming a whole that seems orchestrated. Is this not the nature of existence itself? each life following its own path while participating in a greater design beyond our comprehension. The longer I sit, the more apparent it becomes that what we call self is as ephemeral as morning dew on a bamboo leaf. The boundaries between my consciousness and the forest around me grow increasingly permeable. This experience, sought by monks and warriors alike, cannot be adequately captured in words. It is the space between heartbeats expanded into eternity, the gap between thoughts widened until it becomes a universe unto itself. In this state, insights often arise unbidden. Today I understand something about the nature of courage that had eluded me. True fearlessness comes not from the absence of fear, but from fear fully acknowledged and transcended. The warrior who denies his fear becomes its prisoner. The warrior who embraces it discovers liberation. Perhaps this is why the ancient texts speak of confronting one's own death as the beginning of wisdom. How curious that in stillness I find the energy for battle, in silence, the clarity for command, in solitude, the connection to all those I serve and protect. These paradoxes form the core of the warrior's path, a way that cannot be explained, only experienced. As the sun climbs higher, marking the progression of morning toward midday, I begin the gradual return to ordinary awareness. The transition must be as deliberate as the entry into meditation, a slow gathering of self before returning to duty. Bow to the space before me, honoring both the visible and invisible presences in this bamboo sanctuary. Tomorrow's battle awaits, with all its chaos and consequence. But in this moment between heartbeats, I have found what I came seeking, the space where fear cannot follow, the clarity that transforms duty into purpose, the stillness at the center of action. Snow falls in perfect silence around me, each flake a universe of crystalline geometry that exists for mere moments before surrendering to transformation. I stand on the mountain pass, my blade extended before me in the first position of the horse stance, feeling the weight of winter settle upon steel. The contrast strikes me profoundly. The razor's edge of my katana, forged in summer's blazing heat, now collecting the gentle touch of winter's cold caress. The breath escapes my lungs, invisible clouds, reminding me of the temporary nature of all things. Even the air we carry within becomes something else once released. I move through the sword kata with deliberate slowness, each position held longer than necessary, allowing the snow to accumulate briefly on my shoulders and outstretched arms before being shed with the next movement. My feet find purchase on the frozen ground, adjusting to its hardness compared to the yielding forest floor where I trained through autumn. A sword is tested in winter, my master once told me, when the metal contracts with cold and a warrior's hands grow stiff. Any flaw in technique or temperament reveals itself when comfort is removed. How true his words prove in this moment. The cold seeps through my padded winter garments, seeking the warmth beneath, just as enemies search for weaknesses in one's defense. Yet there is clarity in this discomfort, a sharpening of senses, a distillation of purpose. Summer's abundance allows for distraction. Winter's austerity demands focus. I complete the form and sheathe my blade, watching as snowflakes land on the lacquered scabbard, their perfect forms dissolving upon contact. Few people know that Japanese swordsmiths traditionally forge their finest blades during the coldest months, believing the extreme temperature differences between the forge and the winter air create stronger steel. The master smith Masamune would test his completed swords by placing them in snowbanks, examining how the flakes melted upon the metal to judge its quality and balance. A blade with imperfections would melt the snow unevenly, revealing hidden flaws invisible to the naked eye. Moving to a sheltered outcropping, I brush snow from a flat stone and sit in seize position, placing my sword before me. The winter landscape stretches below, valleys and forests transformed into an ink painting of black and white, beauty reduced to its essential elements. This simplification mirrors what winter does to human concerns as well. In the warmer seasons, we may preoccupy ourselves with court politics, subtle social maneuvers, and the accumulation of influence. When snow blankets the world and survival becomes more immediate, such concerns reveal themselves as the ephemeral constructs they truly are. I recall my first winter campaign, nearly 15 years past, when Lord Takeda led our forces north to secure the mountain passes before spring thaw could allow rival clans access to our territories. We marched through snow deeper than a man's thigh, each step requiring twice the effort of summer movement. Many young samurai complained quietly among themselves, questioning the necessity of such hardship. Our commander, overhearing these murmurs, gathered us that evening and shared a curious tradition from the northern provinces. In the deepest parts of winter, he told us, mountain villagers practice kotatsu zazen, meditation under heated tables with thick blankets trapping the warmth. They believe that 1 hour of mindfulness preserved in winter's embrace equals 10 in summer's ease. We, too, build spiritual strength in proportion to the resistance we overcome. The lesson stayed with me through that bitter campaign, and every winter since. Now, as I watch the snow accumulate on my outstretched palms, I understand more fully what he meant. There is something in winter's challenge that strips away pretense, revealing what lies beneath all our carefully constructed layers, like a sword being drawn from its ornate scabbard to expose the naked steel within. A curious phenomenon occurs. When viewing a landscape through snowfall, distant objects disappear first, gradually erasing the horizon until one's visual world contracts to the immediate surroundings. This natural focusing of attention has been used by Zen archers for centuries, who practice their art during gentle snowfalls to develop mushin, the no-mind state where awareness becomes singular and undistracted. I feel a similar clarity, now as if the falling snow is gradually erasing everything beyond this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. The empire itself experiences seasons, just as the land does. Historians speak of the summer of the Ashikaga shogunate, when arts flourished and trade brought unprecedented prosperity. Now, many say we have entered winter, a time of conflict between clans, scarcity that breeds competition, hard choices that determine survival. Yet within this winter exists the promise of renewal. The snow that blankets the earth also protects dormant seeds and fills the reservoirs that will nourish spring's inevitable return. I wonder, as I watch ice crystals form along the edge of my blade, whether we samurai are winter's creatures by nature. Our discipline thrives in austerity. Our purpose becomes clearest when challenges are greatest. The code we live by, Bushido, demands that we find beauty in impermanence and honor in sacrifice, concepts embodied perfectly in winter's temporary transformations. The snow continues to fall as I rise, brushing white crystals from my hakama. Tomorrow we descend to the valley, where Lord Takeda's forces gather for what may be the decisive battle of this long conflict. The enemy believes the mountain passes impassable in such weather, a misconception that will prove fatal to their strategy. Like water that appears weak, yet eventually shapes the hardest stone, the winter-trained warrior embodies the paradox of gentle strength. As I prepare to depart this meditation place, I notice how my footprints are already filling with fresh snow, erasing evidence of my presence. Perhaps time falls upon empires in the same way, gradually covering the marks of even the mightiest with the soft insistence of its passage. Emperors and peasants, samurai and merchants, all eventually disappear beneath the accumulating layers of history, becoming part of the foundation upon which future generations will stand. The thought brings neither sadness nor fear, only a quiet acceptance. The winter of my heart acknowledging truth while the summer of my spirit embraces the beauty in this transience. The inkstone sits before me, a universe contained in black stone. I grind the solid ink stick in slow, deliberate circles, adding water drop by drop until the consistency is perfect, neither too thick nor too thin. Like preparing for battle, The preparation for calligraphy allows no shortcuts. The four treasures lie arranged before me: inkstone, inkstick, brush, and paper. Their simplicity belies their power. In this quiet room, far from the clash of steel and shouts of war, I seek a different kind of mastery. One where each brushstroke mirrors the arc of my katana dance. Morning light filters through the rice, paper screens, creating a soft illumination ideal for the art of writing. I straighten my posture, adjusting my breathing until it flows evenly. Many would be surprised to learn how many samurai devote themselves to calligraphy with the same intensity they bring to swordsmanship. The famous general Uesugi Kenshin was said to spend equal hours practicing both arts daily, believing that true mastery of the brush revealed one's character as clearly as mastery of the blade. I prepare the paper, a sheet of handmade washi created from mulberry bark, its surface slightly textured beneath my fingertips. The emptiness of the unmarked page both invites and challenges. In battle, we face open terrain that must be crossed. In calligraphy, we confront the void that must be filled with meaning. Both require courage to make the first move, knowing it cannot be undone. Lifting the brush, I hold it vertically, my wrist loose yet controlled. The first character I choose is Ming, Inochi, life. The brush touches paper with decisive pressure, then lifts slightly for the horizontal stroke, dancing across the surface in a movement reminiscent of a sword cutting through space. There is no hesitation, no second chance. Like a sword strike, each brush stroke exists in a moment that cannot be reclaimed or revised. There exists an obscure tradition among certain samurai clans, rarely discussed outside our circles, of writing a single character each morning as a form of meditation on one's potential death that day. Some choose she, death itself. Others prefer Kong, Q, emptiness. My teacher favored Yichi Yihui, Ichigo Ichi, one time, one meeting. A reminder that each encounter might be our last. Through this practice, the samurai confronts mortality not as an abstract concept, but as an intimate companion. The brush moves again, forming she, death, beside the character for life. The juxtaposition is intentional, a visual representation of the balance we warriors must maintain. Too much attachment to life breeds fear. Too much acceptance of death leads to recklessness. The perfect center between these extremes is where the true samurai dwells. Few outside Japan understand the profound connection between calligraphy and swordsmanship. Both arts require what we call ichigo, ichi-e, single-minded concentration, in which each action represents the entirety of one's being. Both demand that the practitioner disappear into the action itself, becoming the brush, becoming the sword. The famous sword master Miyamoto Musashi was also renowned for his painting and calligraphy, often saying that understanding the brush was essential to understanding the blade. I clean my brush meticulously between characters, removing excess ink against the stone's edge. This gesture, too, reflects the samurai's discipline, the careful cleaning of one's sword after use, returning it to a state of readiness. Nothing is too small to merit attention. In both arts, details determine mastery. The next character flows from my brush, Wu, Bu, martial. Its complex structure demands perfect balance between strength and delicacy. The first stroke must be executed with confidence, the brush pressing firmly against paper, while later strokes require a lighter touch, the brush barely whispering across the surface. Is this not also the way of combat? To know when to apply overwhelming force and when subtle redirection will achieve victory. Perhaps the deepest parallel between calligraphy and the warrior's path lies in what the Zen monks call mushin, the state of no mind where action occurs without conscious thought. When writing, there comes a moment when the characters seem to form themselves, the brush moving with its own intelligence. Swordsmen speak of the same phenomenon, the blade finding its target without deliberate aiming, the body responding to threats before the mind registers danger. I recall my swordmaster's words from years ago. When you truly understand the sword, you will find it is not you who cuts, but the sword itself that seeks its natural path. Similarly, the master calligrapher Ono no Michikaze taught that perfect writing emerges only when the self disappears, allowing the character's true nature to manifest through an empty vessel. How curious that these arts, one capable of creating beauty, the other of dealing death, should share such profound kinship. Yet perhaps it is not strange at all. Both require the same essential qualities: complete presence, harmony between intention and action, perfect balance between strength and flexibility. I finish the final character, Dao, Do, the way, the path. Its strokes flow from my hand with neither hurry nor hesitation, embodying the principle of continuous movement. The completed work sits before me: life, death, martial way, three concepts that encompass the entirety of my existence as samurai. Stepping back, I observe my work with detached assessment. In one corner, a stroke is slightly heavier than ideal. In another, a subtle tremor reveals itself. These imperfections do not diminish the work, but humanize it. The master calligrapher Honami Koetsu once said that perfect calligraphy should contain what he called controlled accidents, moments where the brush reveals truths the conscious mind might conceal. Is this not also true of our lives as warriors? Our path is not one of mechanical perfection, but of natural authenticity. The slight hesitation before a difficult decision, the momentary doubt before commitment to action. These human qualities make our service meaningful rather than merely efficient. As the ink dries, fixing these thoughts in permanent form, I prepare for the day's martial training. The brush is cleaned and stored with the same reverence I show my weapons. Later, when I draw my sword for practice, my arm will remember the movements of this morning's calligraphy, the circular preparation, the decisive execution, the follow-through that honors the action's completion. Tomorrow, these characters may be washed away to make space for new insights, just as battlefield victories become memories replaced by fresh challenges. But in this moment, the black ink against white paper speaks a truth as clear as steel against sky. Life and death dance together along the warrior's path, each giving meaning to the other through the calligraphy of existence. Night descends upon the mountain path as I lead my small contingent of warriors back to our Lord's fortress. Paper lanterns sway gently from bamboo poles, carried by our forward scouts, tiny constellations marking our procession through the darkness. Their light creates moving islands of visibility, beyond which the forest holds its countless secrets. These humble flames have guided samurai through darkness since ancient times, their simplicity belying their importance. Like many elements of our existence, these lanterns serve both practical purpose and symbolic meaning, illumination for the path ahead, yet also reminders of how limited our vision truly is. Stay close to the light, I instruct the youngest warrior, a promising swordsman still unaccustomed to mountain travel at night. The shadows between lanterns hide loose stones and sudden drops. He nods, adjusting his position in our formation. The soft glow catches the lacquered surface of his armor, momentarily transforming him into a figure from legend, the young warrior illuminated by fate's guiding light. I wonder if he understands yet how much of our journey as samurai takes place in similar half-light, navigating between what is clearly visible and what must be sensed rather than seen. The use of paper lanterns by traveling samurai became widespread during the early Muromachi period, when night movement gained strategic importance in territorial disputes. Their design evolved specifically for military use, constructed to burn steadily even in mountain winds, to be quickly extinguished if enemies approached, and to cast light downward onto the path while minimizing the bearer's visibility from a distance. What appears simply decorative to civilian eyes was, like many elements of samurai culture, refined through practical necessity. As we round a bend in the path, the valley opens below us, revealing distant lights from villages scattered like fallen stars across the darkness. Each point of light represents human lives under our protection. Farmers, craftspeople, merchants whose peaceful existence depends upon our vigilance. The responsibility weighs heavier than any armor I have worn. The village lights look like reflections of the stars, observes Taro, a veteran warrior whose poetic nature often surfaces during our night marches. Perhaps they are, I reply. The same fire that burns in the heavens burns in our lanterns and in our spirits. This concept of interconnected flames has deep roots in our traditions. Court nobles in ancient times described human souls as fire, each distinct yet drawn from the same primal source. Zen teachers speak of the lantern that illuminates itself, suggesting that awareness needs no external validation. As samurai, we walk between these philosophical worlds, borrowing wisdom from both while forging our own understanding through direct experience. The path narrows, forcing us to proceed in single file. I take the lead, lifting my lantern higher, to illuminate the treacherous ground. Behind me, the procession of lights extends like a dragon's body winding through the mountain darkness. There is unexpected beauty in this vulnerability. We who pride ourselves on strength and self-sufficiency, now dependent on fragile paper sheltering small flames to guide our steps. I recall a story told by my grandfather about the famous general, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, who escaped pursuing enemies by having his men carry lanterns in different directions through the mountains at night, confusing his trackers about which path he had truly taken. Light, like truth, can both reveal and deceive depending on how it is wielded. This duality permeates the samurai's existence. We train in direct combat, yet study the arts of misdirection. We value straightforward honor, yet practice strategic concealment. Light draws both friends and enemies, my first commander often warned. A wise warrior knows when to reveal his position and when to move in darkness. These words return to me now as I consider recent events at court. 3 days ago, I discovered evidence suggesting one of Lord Takeda's advisors has been corresponding with rival clans. The proof remains circumstantial, a seal impression recognized in unusual context, patterns of absence coinciding with enemy movements, subtle changes in counsel that consistently benefit our adversaries. Nothing definitive enough to warrant direct accusation against a man who has served our clan for 20 years. The lantern in my hand casts dramatic shadows across the path, transforming simple rocks into monstrous shapes. How similar to court intrigue, where ordinary actions cast suspicious shadows when viewed from certain angles. Is the advisor truly betraying our lord, or am I seeing patterns where none exist? The consequence of misjudgment in either direction could prove catastrophic. An innocent man dishonored, or a traitor left in position to cause devastating harm. We rest briefly at a mountain shrine, the warriors setting their lanterns around, our small circle creating a temporary haven of light. In this illuminated space, faces emerge from darkness. Men who have fought beside me for years, whose loyalty I have never questioned. Their expressions reflect exhaustion, but also determination, the quiet resolve that defines true warriors beyond their skills with weapons. Sometimes I wonder, says Hideo, the eldest among us, if we carry these lanterns to find our way, or to ensure that our Lord can find us should he need our swords. His observation strikes me as profoundly true. Visibility works in both directions. We illuminate our path forward, while simultaneously making ourselves discoverable by those who depend on us. Is this not the essence of honor? To live visibly, to be findable, to stand in light rather than hide in shadow? Perhaps this is the answer I seek regarding the advisor. Honor is not merely about avoiding betrayal, but about living in such a way that one's path remains visible, traceable, consistent when examined from any angle. The truly honorable man has nothing to fear from scrutiny, because his actions cast no distorted shadows. As we resume our journey, The pattern of our lanterns shifts with the terrain, drawing closer together on narrow paths, spreading wider in open clearings. This organic adaptation to circumstance without losing overall cohesion mirrors the ideal functioning of a samurai unit. Individual warriors adjust their positions based on immediate conditions while maintaining connection to the whole. The fortress appears in the distance, torches marking its stone walls against the night sky. We have navigated the mountain darkness successfully, each small flame doing its part to light the whole path. Tomorrow I will speak privately with Lord Takeda about my concerns, presenting what evidence I have while acknowledging its limitations. I will recommend increased vigilance rather than immediate action, watching which way the advisor's lantern moves in the coming weeks, observing which paths he illuminates and which he leaves in darkness. In the end, perhaps this is wisdom. 2. Recognize that we all move through partial light, guided by imperfect illumination, yet continuing forward with steady purpose. The lantern I carry cannot banish all darkness, but it need not do so. It must only light the next step, and the next, and trust in the collective illumination of all who walk the warrior's path with honor. Crimson and gold leaves spiral down around me as I walk the forest path alone, my armor removed for this rare moment of solitude. Autumn has transformed the landscape, turning the world into a living painting of impermanence. I extend my hand, catching a maple leaf as it descends, five-pointed, like a star fallen from heaven. Its edges have already begun to curl, its vibrant color already fading. I turn it over in my palm, studying the intricate network of veins that once carried life throughout its form. Even in death it maintains a certain dignity, a beauty perhaps more profound than when it clung to its branch. We are all leaves on the great tree of existence, my father told me when I was young, destined to fall when our season ends. I continue along the path, the rustling of leaves beneath my feet creating a whispered conversation with each step. Without the weight of armor, my body feels strangely vulnerable, yet liberated. The autumn wind finds its way through my simple kimono, its cool touch a reminder of winter's approach. This forest belongs to a small shrine dedicated to Inari, the deity of rice harvests and prosperity. In times past, samurai would leave offerings here before campaigns, seeking divine favor for battles to come. Today I seek only clarity amidst the changing seasons of my own life. At 42 winters, I stand at what the court poets call the autumn of life. No longer in the summer of youth, not yet in the winter of old age. My hair shows strands of silver at the temples, and old battle wounds announce themselves with dull aches when rain approaches. Yet my sword arm remains strong, my eyes sharp, my mind perhaps wiser than in earlier years. Like the forest around me, I find myself in transformation, shedding certain aspects of myself while deepening others. During the Heian period, noblemen believed that autumn was the season when the veil between worlds grew thinnest, allowing for deeper reflection and spiritual insight. They would compose poems under falling leaves, believing that words written during this season carried special power to transcend ordinary understanding. While such romantic notions might seem at odds with the practical nature of a warrior's existence, I have found unexpected truth in them. There is something about autumn's transitional beauty that invites contemplation of life's deeper currents. I reach a small clearing where a stone bench sits beneath a particularly magnificent maple tree. Its leaves form a natural canopy of red and gold above, occasionally releasing one of their number to join the carpet below. I take my seat, feeling the cool stone through my clothing. 23 years I have served Lord Takeda, more than half my life dedicated to his cause, his protection, his vision for our province. In that time, I have led men into battle, negotiated truces with rival clans, witnessed the rise and fall of fortunes as unpredictable as autumn winds. An unusual custom practiced in certain mountain villages involves the collection of the first fallen leaves of autumn. These are preserved between sheets of rice paper, then burned during the winter solstice as a symbolic offering of summer's warmth to help sustain the community through the cold months ahead. My mother taught me this ritual when I was a child, long before I took up the sword. I wonder now if she understood how prophetic this lesson would become, that I would spend my life gathering experiences, preserving memories, drawing on their accumulated warmth during difficult times. From this vantage point, I can see the distant castle where my duties await my return. Its gray stone walls contrast with the vibrant colors of the surrounding forest, a reminder of how human constructions strive for permanence amid nature's constant change. Yet even stone walls eventually crumble, just as empires rise and fall. The historian Fujiwara no Kanekata documented how the once mighty Taira clan decorated their helmets with autumn leaves before their final disastrous battle at Dan no Ura, perhaps acknowledging their impending fall from power. History remembers them now primarily for how magnificently they fell, rather than what they achieved at their height. Perhaps this is the wisdom autumn offers, that endings can possess their own splendor, that surrender to inevitable change requires no less courage than resistance. The maple does not fight the coming winter, but instead creates beauty in its release, scattering its leaves like final poems upon the earth. I have begun to notice changes in myself that mirror the forest's transformation. Where once I sought glory in combat, I now find deeper satisfaction in preventing unnecessary bloodshed. Where I once saw strength primarily in decisive action, I now recognize it equally in strategic patience. The young warrior within my armor chased victory. The older one pursues harmony. Yet both serve the same Lord, uphold the same code, wield the same steel. A red-crowned crane lands in the clearing before me, its graceful form startlingly white against the autumn colors. It regards me with what seems like ancient wisdom in its eyes before beginning a methodical search for food among the fallen leaves. I watch its deliberate movements, reminded of the sword forms I practice each dawn. The same precise economy of motion, the same complete absorption in the present moment. Is this not the highest achievement for a samurai? Not merely to serve with loyalty, not only to master weapons and strategies, but to remain fully present as life unfolds around us? To notice the crane, the maple leaf, the changing light, even as we navigate politics and prepare for battle. As the afternoon light slants more sharply through the branches, I gather myself to return to my duties. I select one perfect leaf from the ground, neither the largest nor the most vibrantly colored, but one whose form speaks to me of resilience and grace. This I will place between the pages of the war journal I keep, a small token of autumn's wisdom to carry into whatever season awaits. The path back seems different somehow, though my feet follow the same route. Perhaps it is I who have changed in these quiet hours of reflection. The warrior who returns to don his armor is not precisely the same one who removed it this morning. Just as the forest sheds its leaves, yet remains the forest, I too transform, while remaining true to my essential nature. And perhaps that is autumn's greatest lesson, that change and continuity are not opponents, but partners in the dance of existence. The maple releases its leaves not in surrender, but in preparation for new growth to come. In the same way, the samurai's journey requires both holding fast to unchanging principles and adapting to circumstances with the fluidity of falling leaves. Dawn mist clings to the ancient cedar trees as I approach the mountain temple, its weathered gates standing open in wordless welcome. Behind me lies the world of conflict and duty. Before me, the realm of silence and contemplation. I have journeyed 3 days from Lord Takeda's castle to reach this remote sanctuary, exchanging my armor for simple traveler's clothes, carrying only my swords as markers of my station. Even these I will surrender temporarily at the temple entrance, a ritual submission that always challenges my warrior's instincts despite having performed it many times before. The temple bell sounds once, its deep resonance rolling across the valley like distant thunder. This is Enryakuji, one of the oldest Tendai Buddhist temples in our land, established during the Heian period by the monk Saicho after his return from studying in China. For centuries, these mountain monasteries have maintained an unusual relationship with the samurai class, sometimes allies, sometimes adversaries, always existing in parallel to our world of action with their universe of contemplation. "Welcome, Yasunori-san," says the elderly monk who meets me at the inner gate, bowing with surprising suppleness for one of his years. "It has been 2 seasons since you last sought our humble wisdom. The world does not permit as much seeking as the soul requires," I reply, returning his bow before surrendering my swords to his waiting hands. Few outside the inner circles of power know that many daimyo regularly send trusted retainers to mountain temples, not just for spiritual guidance, but for political intelligence. Monks travel widely without suspicion, hear confessions from powerful figures, and often understand the true currents of power better than those who believe themselves to be wielding it. While I genuinely come for meditation and clarity, I will also listen carefully for whispers that might benefit my lord's position in the ongoing conflicts between clans. The temple compound opens before me, a collection of wooden structures that seem to grow organically from the mountainside, connected by covered walkways and stone paths. Moss covers the older rooftops, blurring the boundary between human construction and natural growth. Monks move through the space like silent shadows, each absorbed in tasks that have been performed in exactly the same manner for hundreds of years. I am led to the guest quarters, a small room with tatami flooring and a view of the forest beyond. Its simplicity stands in stark contrast to the ornate chambers of the castle, yet I find my shoulders relaxing as I settle onto the floor cushion. Here, rank and achievement mean nothing. The temple recognizes neither titles nor victories, only the present moment and one's approach to it. "The abbot will see you after the midday meditation," my guide informs me before withdrawing, closing the sliding door with practiced gentleness. Left alone, I feel the familiar disorientation that always accompanies my transition from warrior to seeker. In the world below, every moment demands decision, action, consequence. Here, stillness itself becomes the primary action. My hands, trained for the sword's hilt, rest awkwardly in my lap. My ears, attuned to the sounds of danger and opportunity, struggle to interpret the temple's profound silence as anything but an absence to be filled. A peculiar practice of Tendai Buddhism that few outsiders witness is Kaihogyo, the marathon. Monks who undertake a 7-year challenge of running meditation covering distances that eventually total 1,000 days of marathons across mountain terrain. They carry only a rope and dagger, symbolizing their willingness to take their own lives if they fail to complete the day's prescribed route. While I have never witnessed this practice directly, the temple contains wooden statues depicting these monks, their faces expressing a transcendence that both fascinates and unsettles me. What battlefield have they conquered within themselves that makes my external conflicts seem shallow by comparison? The midday bell sounds, and I join the procession of monks moving toward the meditation hall. We walk in perfect silence, feet seeming barely to touch the polished wooden floors. Inside the hall, rows of cushions face the simple altar where a single flame burns. I take my place at the back, assuming the cross-legged posture that feels less natural to my warrior's body than the formal Seiza position. As meditation begins, I confront the true purpose of my visit, the battle that rages not on distant fields, but within my own mind. 3 weeks ago, I was forced to execute a samurai under my command who had betrayed our position to enemy forces, resulting in the deaths of 17 men. He was the son of my former mentor, a man who saved my life twice. In past campaigns, the traitor died with dignity, accepting his fate without protest. Yet his eyes haunt my dreams, not accusing, but somehow questioning, as if asking whether the code we live by serves truth or merely perpetuates itself through our unquestioning adherence. The abbot's voice, when it finally breaks the silence, startles me from these thoughts. The warrior seeks to conquer others. The monk seeks to conquer himself. Yet they walk the same mountain from different directions. His words seem directed specifically at my internal struggle. Though I have shared it with no one, this is the uncanny wisdom that draws samurai to these remote temples. The sense that the monks can read the battles written in our silence. Later, in the abbot's private study, we share tea while discussing ostensibly philosophical matters that gradually reveal their practical applications. He speaks of emptiness as the foundation of form. I think of creating strategic openings that invite enemy advances into vulnerable positions. He discusses the illusion of permanence. I consider how empires rise and fall through the mistaken belief in their own immortality. Each concept bridges our seemingly separate worlds, revealing the shared terrain of human experience beneath our different paths. You carry a question that your sword cannot answer, he observes during a pause in our conversation. Is duty always virtue? I ask finally, the words emerging before I can reconsider them. Or can perfect adherence to the code become its own form of betrayal? The abbot does not answer immediately, instead pouring more tea with movements so economical they appear effortless. The steam rises between us like the mist that surrounds the mountain. The highest duty is to truth, he says, at last. Sometimes truth wears the face of loyalty, sometimes compassion, sometimes even apparent disobedience. The skilled warrior, like the wise monk, must learn to recognize truth beyond its changing masks. His answer provides no clear direction yet, somehow lightens the weight I have carried up the mountain. Perhaps clarity is not found in certainty but in the courage to remain open to the question itself. As dusk approaches, bringing with it the evening meditation bell, I realize that the battlefield within my mind has not disappeared. But I have gained new terrain from which to observe its patterns, its purpose, and perhaps even its resolution. Cherry blossoms flutter down around me like pink snow, covering the memorial stones with a delicate blanket of color. I kneel before the simple markers, arranging cups of sake as offerings for those who can no longer drink with us. The spring air carries the sweet fragrance of new life, a gentle counterpoint to this place of remembrance. Each stone represents a warrior who served alongside me, men whose laughter once filled our encampments, whose swords once flashed in morning practice, whose dreams and fears were shared during long night watches. Now, only these silent monuments remain and the memories I carry within. The sake is from Yoshino, I say aloud, though no living ears hear my words. Tanaka always claimed it was the finest in the province. I thought you should taste it, old friend. The practice of speaking to the dead might seem strange to outsiders, yet it remains one of our most treasured traditions. Unlike the elaborate Buddhist ceremonies performed by monks, these private conversations between warriors are intimate affairs. Moments when the boundary between worlds feels permeable enough for words to cross. Some samurai believe that fallen comrades linger near their memorial stones for 7 days after death, able to hear everything spoken in their presence. Others maintain that the warrior's spirit remains tied to his swords, which is why we often place a fallen samurai's favorite weapon at his grave until its owner's journey to the next realm is complete. I trace the kanji engraved on Hideyoshi's stone, remembering how meticulously he would care for his armor before battle, polishing each plate until it gleamed. 3 springs have passed since he fell defending the northern border. Yet sometimes in the training yard, I still find myself turning to share an observation with him before remembering his absence. Such phantom conversations are common among veterans, a curious form of haunting that binds the living to the dead through habits of companionship too deeply ingrained to abandon. The cherry trees surrounding the memorial ground were planted precisely for this purpose, to honor fallen warriors with beauty that mirrors their own transient existence. During the Kamakura period, when samurai first rose to prominence as a distinct warrior class, The symbolism of the cherry blossom became inseparably linked with our philosophy of life and death. The flowers bloom brilliantly, endure briefly, then fall at the height of their beauty, rather than withering slowly. An ideal death that many samurai aspire to emulate. Some historical accounts tell of samurai who, before particularly dangerous battles, would compose death poems while sitting beneath cherry trees in full bloom, preparing their spirits for the possibility of imminent falling. A petal lands on my outstretched palm, and I study its perfect form, flawless even in separation from its source. How strange that something so delicate could become the enduring symbol of warriors who dedicate their lives to strength and resilience. Yet perhaps therein lies the deeper wisdom. True strength includes embracing one's inherent fragility rather than denying it. You would have appreciated the irony, Takashi, I murmur to another stone. You who lectured us all on finding beauty in impermanence, now immortalized in granite that will outlast us all. 15 markers stand in this secluded grove. 15 men who once followed my commands, who trusted my judgment, who paid the ultimate price for that trust. Their faces come to me clearly. Takashi with his crooked smile, Hideyoshi with his meticulously trimmed beard, young Saburo who died in his first battle before he could even earn a warrior name. Each death left its own distinct hollow in our unit, in our rituals, in my heart. Yet we who survive must continue carrying our swords forward, honoring their sacrifice through our continued service. Few outside Japan understand the profound complexity of how we view death in battle. The common Western assumption that samurai seek death as the highest honor misses the deeper truth. We do not seek death itself, but rather a life of such perfect dedication that we remain unattached to its continuation. The distinction is subtle yet vital. A death too eagerly embraced may spring from selfishness rather than sacrifice. A death too fearfully avoided betrays the very code that gives our path meaning. I arrange small stones around each memorial marker, an ancient practice rooted in Shinto belief that stones serve as vessels capable of housing kami, the spirits of departed ancestors. Some warriors' families maintain elaborate stone gardens at their family shrines, with each carefully placed rock representing a fallen family member. The position and size of each stone carries meaning legible to those who know how to read this stone language. Larger rocks for clan heads, smaller ones for younger sons, with arrangements suggesting familial relationships. The memorial garden becomes a physical manifestation of ancestral presence, a tangible map of spiritual protection extending from past generations to current ones. A nightingale calls from a nearby branch, its song piercing the quiet contemplation of this sacred space. Legend holds that nightingales serve as messengers between worlds, their songs carrying words from the living to the dead. I find myself listening intently, wondering if within those liquid notes I might hear responses from my fallen brothers, some message from beyond the veil that separates us temporarily. Perhaps we never truly die as long as someone remembers our name, I say to the stones, an idea that has provided comfort since my first experience of losing comrades in battle. Perhaps memory itself is a form of immortality available even to those of us who leave no descendants. As the afternoon light slants through cherry branches, casting dappled shadows across the memorial ground, I perform the ritual water purification before departure, pouring clear spring water over each stone as a final blessing. Water, like life itself, adapts to any container, yet maintains its essential nature through all transformations. Even in grief, there are lessons to be learned from the elements that surround us. I gather the sake cups, now empty, perhaps consumed by thirsty spirits or simply evaporated into the spring air. The distinction hardly matters. The act of offering creates connection regardless of metaphysical reality. As I prepare to return to the world of the living, to duties, strategies, and the continuation of our clan's ambitions, I carry with Me the quiet wisdom of this place, that life's beauty and meaning exist not despite its impermanence, but because of it. The pink petals continue to fall as I depart, covering my footprints almost immediately. Soon there will be no trace of my visit except in the invisible realm of remembrance, the same realm where my brothers in arms continue their existence beyond physical form. We are all in the end like these cherry blossoms, brilliant, brief, beautiful in our falling. Twilight settles upon the hillside where I have chosen to spend these quiet hours, the boundary between day and night, blurring like the line between life and death in an aging warrior's contemplation. The sun bleeds crimson across the western sky, casting long shadows that stretch toward eternity. I have removed my helmet, allowing the evening breeze to cool my brow as I observe the distant encampments below. Thousands of paper lanterns gradually illuminating as darkness approaches, marking the positions of both ally and enemy forces. Tomorrow, these armies will clash in what may be the decisive battle of this long conflict. Whether history will remember it as glorious victory or noble defeat remains written only in the uncertain language of fate. I trace the scar along my forearm, a souvenir from my first battle. 30 years past. How young I was then, how eager to prove my courage, how certain of immortality despite all evidence to the contrary. Now, at 58 winters, I view the coming conflict through eyes tempered by decades of witnessing both triumph and tragedy. The fire of youth has cooled to something steadier, more controlled, yet perhaps more dangerous in its deliberate focus. Experience has taught me that battles are won not through passion alone, but through the perfect balance of emotion and calculation. The heart and mind moving in harmony like well-matched swordsmen. A warrior thinks of death daily, wrote the great strategist Yamamoto Tsunetomo, yet when facing its reality, finds that he has not thought of it deeply enough. How true these words ring as I contemplate tomorrow's engagement. Despite countless meditation sessions focused on my eventual death, despite composing death poems and settling my affairs before every major battle, the mystery of that final transition remains impenetrable. Perhaps this is wisdom's final lesson, that some experiences cannot be prepared for, only met with open awareness when they arrive. The tradition of preparing for one's final battle has evolved specific rituals among the samurai class. Some warriors spend the eve of combat writing farewell, letters to family members, to be delivered only in event of their death. Others engage in misogi, ritual purification under waterfall or cold spring, to cleanse body and spirit before potential departure from this realm. Still others participate in jisei, the composition of death poems meant to capture one's final insight or emotion. While I have observed these practices throughout my career, tonight I find myself simply sitting in quiet contemplation, watching twilight deepen over the landscape that may claim my life with tomorrow's dawn. Below, in our encampment, I can make out the silhouettes of younger samurai moving through final preparations, checking armor, sharpening blades, perhaps sharing sake with brothers in arms who may not survive to share another. Their voices occasionally drift upward on the evening breeze, fragments of conversation punctuated by laughter that carries the slight edge of nervous anticipation. How familiar that blend of emotions. The camaraderie strengthened by shared danger, the gallows humor that makes mortality momentarily manageable, the unspoken fear disguised as bravado. Though 3 decades separate me from their youthful vigor, I recognize myself in their pre-battle rituals. A curious phenomenon occurs in many warriors during the evening before significant combat, a heightened sensory awareness that transforms ordinary experiences into profound encounters. The taste of simple rice becomes impossibly complex. The sound of wind through pine needles carries symphonic depth. The texture of sword hilt against calloused palm evokes memories of every battle ever fought. Some Buddhist monks call this the attention of the condemned, a state of perfect presence achieved naturally by those who cannot assume another sunrise. I feel this awareness now as twilight deepens around me, each moment saturated with significance simply because it exists. The historical record contains numerous accounts of famous samurai who experienced prophetic dreams or visions on the eve of their final battles. Minamoto no Yoshitsune reportedly dreamed of cherry blossoms falling into a rushing river the night before his last stand. Takeda Shingen described seeing his ancestors waiting to welcome him while meditating before the Battle of Mikatagahara. Whether these experiences represented supernatural insight or merely the mind's attempt to create meaning from approaching mortality remains a mystery that each warrior must interpret individually. I have experienced no such visions tonight, only this profound stillness and unusual clarity of perception. Owls begin their evening calls as true darkness claims the valley, their haunting voices echoing questions without answers. An ancient belief holds that owls serve as messengers between worlds, carrying whispers from ancestors to those approaching important transitions. I listen to their calls with renewed attention, wondering if some wisdom might be encoded in their seemingly random patterns. This tendency to seek meaning in natural occurrences before battle dates back to our earliest military traditions, when diviners would interpret everything from cloud formations to bird migrations as omens of coming, victory or defeat. My hand moves instinctively to my katana, fingers tracing the familiar pattern of its hilt wrapping. This sword has been my companion longer than any human relationship, its character revealed through countless challenges. Master swordsmiths believe that a properly forged blade develops its own spirit over time, absorbing something of each battle it witnesses, each life it takes or spares. If this is true, what wisdom resides in this curved steel that has accompanied me through 3 decades of warfare? What would it say if it could speak of all we have experienced together? The first stars appear overhead, eternal witnesses to the temporary struggles of mortal men. How many battles have they observed from their distant vantage points? How many warriors have gazed upward on the eve of combat, seeking comfort in their unchanging patterns? There is humility in this astronomical perspective, the recognition that our greatest conflicts register as momentary flickers in the grand tapestry of time. Yet paradoxically, this same perspective makes our choices more significant rather than less. If our time is indeed brief, then how we live each moment carries infinite importance. As full darkness embraces the landscape, I begin my descent toward camp. Tomorrow's battle awaits with all its chaos and consequence, its opportunity for either honorable death or continued service. I cannot know which path awaits me, only that I will meet it with the accumulated wisdom of a life dedicated to the warrior's way. Perhaps this is the ultimate whisper that twilight offers about eternity, that we participate in something larger than our individual existence through how fully we embody our chosen path, how completely we surrender to the role we have been given to play. The lanterns grow brighter as I approach our encampment, their combined glow creating an island of human purpose in the darkness. Whatever tomorrow brings, tonight I am still among the living, still capable of leadership, still responsible for those who follow my commands. I will carry the quiet wisdom of twilight's contemplation into dawn's decisive action, grateful for this moment between, this sacred pause where time itself seems to whisper secrets about the nature of eternity. The darkness before dawn holds a different quality than evening's gentle descent, a stillness more profound, a silence more complete. I stand alone on the eastern ridge, having left my tent while the camp still sleeps. The stars above begin their gradual surrender to approaching light, yet one remains brilliant against the indigo canvas, the morning star, hanging like a solitary tear in the heavens. Tradition holds that warriors who witness this star on the day of battle receive special protection, though whether from victory or merely from dishonorable death, the legends never specify. My breath creates small clouds in the cold air as I perform the ritual sword movements, not the aggressive forms of combat training, but the slower, more meditative patterns meant to align body and spirit. Steel whispers through space, catching the first hint of approaching light. After decades of service, these movements have become as natural as breathing. A physical prayer enacted through muscle and bone, steel and will. Yet today, something feels different, as if I am both performer and witness, simultaneously present in my body and observing from some distant vantage point. The samurai who truly understands his path becomes the path itself, my first teacher said. Only now, with the silvered hair of late autumn life, do I begin to grasp the depth of his meaning. Below in the valley, our forces will soon awaken to prepare for the confrontation that awaits with midday's sun. The battle maps are drawn, the strategies set, the orders distributed. Messengers have been dispatched to ensure our allies approach from the western mountain passes as planned. All that remains is the execution, the transformation of careful planning into chaotic reality, of strategic vision into blood and steel and courage. I have orchestrated this dance enough times to anticipate its rhythms. Yet each engagement unfolds according to its own unique pattern, resisting even the most careful prediction. A peculiar calmness has settled into my bones. Not the forced tranquility of meditation, but something that seems to arise from the marrow itself. Perhaps this is what the Zen masters describe as the mind like moon reflected in still water, perfectly clear, yet ultimately untouchable. After a lifetime of cultivating readiness for death, I find myself more deeply alive in this pre-dawn moment than ever before, as if mortality's constant companionship has finally revealed itself as the source of life's sweetest savor. The eastern horizon blushes with the first hint of sunrise, a thin line of amber separating earth from heaven. Something about this particular dawn speaks to me with unusual clarity, not in words but in the language of light gradually reclaiming shadow, of possibility emerging from darkness. I recall a conversation with a mountain ascetic years ago who claimed that dawn was the moment when human consciousness could most easily perceive truths normally hidden by daylight's distractions. The veil between worlds thins with first light, he said, revealing paths invisible to ordinary perception. As if in confirmation of this ancient wisdom, I suddenly perceive possibilities that have remained concealed throughout my decades of service, not on the battlefield before me, but within the landscape of my own heart. The coming conflict, which yesterday seemed inevitable as the turning of seasons, now appears as merely one path among many. The morning star's unwavering light seems to illuminate alternative routes through the territory of honor and duty, paths no less honorable for being less traveled. What if true loyalty sometimes requires questioning rather than merely obeying? What if protection of one's lord and clan might occasionally demand restraint rather than aggression? What if the highest expression of the warrior's code manifests not in perfect victory, but in the wisdom to recognize when not to draw one's sword? These questions would have seemed treasonous to my younger self, raised on stories of samurai who demonstrated devotion through unquestioning sacrifice. Yet the first rays of sun now breaking across the valley illuminate a more nuanced understanding, that the mature warrior serves not merely through strength of arm, but through clarity of vision, recognizing the true enemies that threaten what we are sworn to protect. In this moment of revelation, I understand what I must do. The battle planned for today, while strategically sound, serves primarily to advance territorial ambitions rather than address genuine threats to our people's well-being. The conflict could be resolved through negotiation, preserving lives on both sides to face the greater challenges that historical perspective reveals as truly significant. Drought, disease, the suffering of common people caught between powerful clans' ambitions. My hand finds the signal horn at my belt. 3 long calls would summon my captains for new instructions. A single sustained note would request parley with the opposing commander. Either choice represents a departure from expectations, a risk to my reputation, perhaps even to my position. Yet the morning star's unwavering light seems to offer blessing for this uncharted course, this path previously invisible within the territory of duty and honor. The weight of my decisions settles into certainty as the sun's full face appears above the mountain ridge. Whatever consequences follow, whether vindication or disgrace, continued service or solitary exile, I will meet them with the same steadiness that has carried me through countless battles. Perhaps this, ultimately, is the highest expression of the samurai spirit. Not blindly following a predetermined course, but finding the courage to forge new paths when wisdom demands it. I raise the horn to my lips, my choice made. The sound carries across the valley, echoing from mountain walls as dawn fully claims the land. In this moment between darkness and light, between sleeping and waking, between the warrior I have been and the one I am becoming, I discover a truth that has awaited me all along, that the most challenging battles we face are not against external enemies, but within ourselves, and that true victory sometimes lies in the courage to imagine alternatives to conflict. The morning star fades as daylight strengthens, its work complete. It has shown me a path I never knew existed within my own heart, one that honors tradition while transcending its limitations, one that serves the deeper purpose of protection rather than the superficial glory of conquest. As I descend toward camp to implement this new vision, I feel as if I am walking not just into morning light, but into a different future than the one I had anticipated with evening's planning. The mountains dissolve into watercolor shadows as night finally surrenders to the full authority of day. The transition complete, the dream of darkness transforming into waking reality. I stand at the threshold between these worlds, feeling the boundary between what was and what might be growing thinner with each passing moment, like mist evaporating from a still lake at sunrise, leaving only clear reflection where mystery once dwelled. The journey through night's contemplations has carried me across territories both familiar and unexplored, through memories of battles fought and honors earned, through quiet moments of connection with comrades both living and dead, through questions that have no simple answers yet must be asked by any who truly walk the warrior's path. The light now bathes everything in gold, transforming the ordinary into the sacred, revealing how thin the veil has always been between mundane existence and profound meaning, between duty performed and purpose discovered, between the self we show to others and the deeper currents that move beneath surface identity like ancient rivers beneath seemingly solid ground. Perhaps all meaningful journeys follow this pattern, beginning in darkness, proceeding through uncertainty, and eventually opening into illumination that reveals not just the landscape ahead but the territory within, the uncharted regions of our own hearts that hold possibilities we never suspected existed until some unexpected dawn revealed them. As I prepare to rejoin the waking world with its demands and decisions, I carry with me the wisdom gathered in these hours between sunset and sunrise. The understanding that true strength often manifests in unexpected forms, that honor encompasses more than blind adherence to tradition, that the path of protection sometimes requires the courage to question rather than merely obey. The morning mist rises from the valley like departing spirits, carrying these night lessons upward into dissolving memory, yet leaving their essence behind to guide whatever challenges the new day brings. Good night, time traveler. May your rest be as light as the footprints we leave in the sand of history.